I pulled into my parents' driveway, excited for my 25th birthday dinner. Instead, I walked into a house filled with "Congratulations, Jason" banners. In the center of the dining table sat a cake with my brother's name on it. When I asked my mother about my birthday celebration, she scoffed, "You're just jealous of your perfect brother." The argument escalated until my father pointed to the door. As they kicked me out that night, I smiled slightly because they didn't know about the inheritance letter tucked safely in my bag. For as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my brother Jason. While most siblings experience some level of comparison in our house, it was an art form perfected to my detriment. Jason was 3 years older, 6 inches taller, and apparently infinitely more valuable to our parents. My earliest memory of this imbalance comes from when I was 6 years old. I had won a spelling bee at school, beating kids 2 grades above me. I rushed home, clutching my little blue ribbon, bursting with pride. My mother, Nancy, barely glanced at it before redirecting my father, Greg's, attention to Jason's B+ science test. "Look how well Jason is doing in science. He might be a doctor someday," she gushed, pinning his test to the refrigerator. My blue ribbon ended up in my sock drawer. That pattern continued through my entire childhood. Jason's average performances were celebrated as extraordinary achievements, while my accomplishments were treated as expected if acknowledged at all. Basketball trophies, academic awards, art contest wins, all met with the same lukewarm response. "That's nice, Lynette." By high school, I understood my place in the family hierarchy. While Jason attended the expensive private school across town, I went to the local public school. "We can only afford one tuition," my father explained. "And Jason has such potential." The disparity became even more pronounced when college applications rolled around. My parents hired tutors for Jason's SATs, paid for campus visits, and helped him craft the perfect admissions essays. Meanwhile, I researched scholarships alone at the library after school. When acceptance letters arrived, my parents threw a party for Jason's admission to a prestigious university. My acceptance to a state school with a full academic scholarship warranted a brief, "good job" over breakfast. I put myself through college, working 3 jobs, waitressing on weekends, tutoring underclassmen, and doing administrative work in the department office. I'd call home occasionally, but conversations invariably turned to Jason's latest accomplishments. "Your brother just got an internship at Thompson Financial. Isn't that wonderful?" my mother would exclaim, not bothering to ask about my own achievements. Throughout those years, only one person truly saw me: my grandmother, Martha. Mom's mother was a straight-talking, no-nonsense woman who had built a successful real estate business from nothing. She had piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through people's facades, and she had no patience for the blatant favoritism in our family. "Your parents are fools," she told me once when I was visiting her during a college break. We sat on her porch swing drinking lemonade as the summer sun set. "They're so busy polishing their golden boy that they're missing the diamond right in front of them." Grandma Martha became my refuge. While my parents funded Jason's apartment in a trendy neighborhood, Grandma helped me furnish my tiny studio with beautiful hand-me-downs from her own home. When I graduated summa cum laude with a double major in business and economics, my parents attended but spent most of the ceremony talking about Jason's new job offer. Grandma Martha, however, threw me a proper celebration at her home. "You've got your grandfather's head for business, and my determination," she said, presenting me with a vintage leather portfolio that had belonged to my grandfather. "You're going to outshine them all, Lynette. Just you wait." Grandma Martha passed away 3 months ago, and her loss left a gaping hole in my life. She was the only one who championed me, the only one who believed I was worthy of celebration simply for being myself. Her funeral was the last time our whole family was together, and even then, somehow the conversation kept turning to Jason's career trajectory. So when my 25th birthday approached, I decided to do something I rarely did: ask for attention. I specifically requested a small family dinner. Nothing fancy, just acknowledgement of my milestone birthday. My mother seemed distracted on the phone, but agreed. "Sure, Lynette. The 27th at 7. We'll see you then." I spent the day of my birthday feeling genuinely excited. I'd recently been promoted at the financial consulting firm where I'd worked for the past 3 years, something not even my parents could dismiss. I bought a new dress, had my hair done, and even splurged on a nice bottle of wine to bring to dinner. What I didn't know was that earlier that same day, I had received another gift, one that would change everything. My grandmother's lawyer had called while I was in a meeting, leaving a voicemail asking me to visit his office at my earliest convenience regarding my inheritance. I stopped by after my hair appointment. "Your grandmother was very specific about the timing," Mr. Patterson explained, sliding a thick envelope across his desk. "This was to be delivered to you on your 25th birthday, not a day before." I opened it in his office, my hands trembling slightly. Inside was a letter written in my grandmother's distinct handwriting and several legal documents. "My dearest Lynette," the letter began, "if you're reading this, I'm no longer here to celebrate your 25th birthday with you, but I want you to know that I see you. I've always seen you, and now I'm giving you the tools to make sure everyone else does too." The documents revealed that Grandma Martha had left me her entire estate, the historic family home. My parents had always coveted her successful business and substantial financial assets. I sat in stunned silence as Mr. Patterson explained the details. "Your grandmother was quite strategic," he said. "She restructured her holdings in the months before her passing. You now hold controlling interest in several assets your family may not expect." I tucked the letter and documents into my bag, feeling a strange mix of grief, gratitude, and power. I decided not to mention anything to my family yet. This birthday dinner would be about celebration, not confrontation. How wrong I was. I arrived at the family home at exactly 7, wine bottle in hand, ready to graciously accept even the most minimal of birthday acknowledgments. But when I walked through the front door, my heart sank. The house was decorated with blue and silver streamers, and a large banner hung across the dining room entrance. "Congratulations on your promotion, Jason." For a moment, I thought I had the wrong day. I checked my phone calendar. No, this was definitely the day we had planned for my birthday dinner. As I stood in the entryway, my mother bustled out from the kitchen. "Oh, Lynette, you're early. The guests won't be here for another 30 minutes. "Guests?" I asked, still trying to process what was happening. "For Jason's promotion party," she said, as if it were obvious. "He made junior partner at the firm." "Isn't that wonderful?" She hurried back to the kitchen without waiting for my response. I followed her, a sense of dread building in my stomach. And there it was, sitting on the counter, a large sheet cake with "Congratulations, Jason," written in bold blue letters. My birthday cake was nowhere to be seen. "Mom," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "today is my birthday. We had plans for a family dinner, remember?" She waved a hand dismissively while arranging deviled eggs on a serving platter. "We can celebrate your birthday another time, honey. Jason's promotion is a really big deal. He beat out 12 other associates for this position." I stood there, the wine bottle still clutched in my hand, as the magnitude of the betrayal washed over me. They hadn't forgotten my birthday. They had consciously replaced it with yet another celebration for Jason. At that moment, I felt the weight of the inheritance letter in my bag. They had no idea that their overlooked daughter now controlled assets they had counted on receiving themselves. The grandmother they had often dismissed had just handed me the keys to a kingdom they didn't even know existed. By 8 o'clock, the house was filled with relatives, family, friends, and several of Jason's colleagues. Everyone milled about with drinks and appetizers, congratulating my brother on his tremendous achievement. Jason worked the room with practiced charm, accepting compliments with just the right balance of pride and humility. "Well, I had great mentors at the firm," he told our Uncle Bill, clasping his shoulder. "And Dad's business advice has been invaluable." My father beamed beside him, puffing up with pride as if he personally had secured the promotion. I stood in the corner, nursing a glass of the wine I had brought, watching the familiar family dynamic play out. Aunt Patricia approached me, cocktail in hand. "Lynette, how are you, dear? It's been ages." "I'm good," I replied, forcing a smile. "Today's actually my birthday." Her face fell. "Oh, happy birthday. Did your parents? Are they doing something for you too?" I shrugged. This seems to be the main event. Aunt Patricia looked uncomfortable, glancing between me and the celebration happening around Jason. "Well, that doesn't seem right," she muttered, but quickly changed the subject. "How's work going for you?" "I was recently promoted too," I said. senior financial analyst at Meridian Consulting. That's wonderful, she exclaimed, genuinely impressed. You should tell everyone. I smiled tightly. I think tonight is about Jason. As the evening progressed, I made a few more attempts to subtly remind people about my birthday. My cousin Ashley remembered immediately and looked horrified when I explained the situation. My grandpa Russell on my father's side gruffly pressed a $20 bill into my hand when no one was looking. But most people seemed oblivious or uncomfortable, quickly returning their attention to the golden child of the family. Jason himself seemed completely unaware of any issue. He crossed paths with me near the drinks table at one point. Hey sis, thanks for coming, he said, refilling his glass. Quite a turnout, huh? Wouldn't miss it, I replied neutrally. By the way, today's my 25th birthday. A flicker of something recognition guilt crossed his face before he recovered. Oh, right, happy birthday. We should grab lunch soon to celebrate. He was quickly pulled away by another well-wisher before I could respond. I watched him go, wondering if he truly hadn't known or simply didn't care. Either way, the outcome was the same. I was once again invisible in my own family story. The scene reminded me painfully of my 16th birthday 9 years ago. I had specifically asked for a small party with a few friends, nothing elaborate. My parents had agreed, but when the day came, they were completely absorbed with Jason's college applications. My mother forgot to pick up the cake she had ordered, and my father spent the entire evening helping Jason with his personal statement. My friends and I ended up ordering pizza and watching movies in the basement while, upstairs, my parents fussed over word choices for Jason's essay. Now here I was 9 years later, experiencing the same disappointment in a new form. Some patterns never change. I excused myself and retreated to the kitchen, needing a moment alone. The house had been renovated several times over the years, but this room still held traces of my childhood, the height markings on the doorframe, the slight burn mark on the counter from when I tried to make birthday pancakes for my mom. Small imprints of a life largely overlooked. I took the inheritance letter from my bag and read it again, finding comfort in my grandmother's words. You have always had to work twice as hard for half the recognition, she wrote. That ends now. Tucking the letter away, I noticed a small wooden box on top of the refrigerator, my grandmother's jewelry box. I frowned, confused by its presence in my parents' kitchen. Grandma Martha had specifically mentioned her jewelry collection in her letter, stating that she wanted me to have her pieces because you're the only one who ever appreciated their stories, not just their value. I pulled a chair over and retrieved the box, opening it carefully. Several spaces were empty, the antique sapphire earrings she often wore, her emerald pendant, and the pearl bracelet she had promised would be mine someday. A sick feeling grew in my stomach as I realized what must have happened. What are you doing with that? I turned to find my mother standing in the doorway, her eyes fixed on the jewelry box in my hands. This is Grandma's jewelry box, I said. Why do you have it? And where are half her pieces? My mother crossed the kitchen and snatched the box from my hands. That's none of your concern. I'm handling Mom's things. Her things were meant to be distributed according to her will, I said carefully. Don't be dramatic, Lynette. I'm just sorting through them. She placed the box on a high shelf. Some pieces needed cleaning, that's all. I knew she was lying. The sapphire earrings and the pearl bracelet, where are they? A flicker of guilt crossed her face before her expression hardened. If you must know, I sold a few pieces. The estate taxes were considerable, and someone had to handle them. You sold Grandma's jewelry. Without consulting anyone, I struggled to keep my voice even. Those were family heirlooms, Mom. She wanted me to have them. My mother laughed dismissively. You wouldn't appreciate them anyway. You've never cared about appearances. The casual cruelty of her statement stung. That's not true. I loved Grandma's jewelry because they were pieces of her history. She told me stories about each one. Well, what's done is done, my mother said, with finality. Now help me bring out the cake for your brother. I stood rooted to the spot, anger and hurt coursing through me. You know today is my birthday. You agreed to a family dinner weeks ago. Lynette, she sighed as if I were being unreasonable. Jason's promotion is a momentous occasion. We can celebrate your birthday next weekend. Like you celebrated it last year. Or the year before that. I asked, memories of forgotten and minimized birthdays flooding back. When have you ever put my celebrations first? Don't start this again, my mother warned. This isn't about you. It never is, I replied, my voice breaking slightly. Even when it's supposed to be. My mother's face flushed with anger, as guests began filtering into the kitchen, drawn by our raised voices. Is everything okay in here? Jason asked, stepping between us with a practiced peacemaker smile. Your sister is having one of her moments, my mother said tightly. She's upset about the timing of your party. Jason looked confused. What about the timing? It's my 25th birthday today, I said flatly. Mom agreed to a family dinner weeks ago, but apparently your promotion took precedence. A ripple of uncomfortable awareness moved through the gathered guests. My cousin Amanda winced visibly. Uncle Robert suddenly became very interested in his drink. My father pushed through the small crowd, his face dark with annoyance. What's the holdup with the cake? He demanded, then noticed the tension. What's going on? Apparently we're celebrating Jason's promotion on Lynette's birthday. Aunt Patricia said, the only one brave enough to state the obvious. My father looked momentarily thrown, then recovered quickly. We can certainly recognize both occasions, he said smoothly. Jason, why don't you share the spotlight with your sister tonight? It was a diplomatic solution, but the damage was already done. The entire scenario, my birthday dinner being converted into Jason's promotion party, my mother selling family heirlooms, promised to me the hasty attempt to include my birthday as an afterthought crystallized 25 years of being secondary in my own family. No thank you, I said quietly but firmly. I don't want to be an addition to Jason's celebration. I just wanted my own dinner with my own family, recognizing my own milestone. Oh, for heaven's sake, Lynette, it's just a birthday, my mother snapped. Everyone has them every year. Jason's promotion is a singular achievement. Nancy, my Aunt Patricia, cautioned. But my mother was on a roll. No, I'm tired of the sulking and the competition. Jason worked hard for this promotion. He deserves to be celebrated without Lynette trying to steal his thunder. I laughed incredulously. Steal his thunder? Mom, I've never had thunder to begin with. My achievements have always been footnotes in this family. That's not true, my father interjected, but without conviction. Isn't it? I challenged. When I graduated summa cum laude, you spent most of the ceremony talking about Jason's job offer. When I bought my first car with money I earned myself, you barely glanced at it before asking when Jason would be visiting next. Jason shifted uncomfortably. Come on, Lynette, that's not fair. Not fair. I turned to him. When was the last time you had to fight for attention in this family? When was the last time your accomplishments were minimized or ignored? He had no answer. Can we please just move on and enjoy the evening? My father set his tone, making it clear this was not a request but a command. Stop ruining Jason's special day with your jealousy, Lynette. The word hung in the air between us. Jealousy. The accusation they had leveled at me my entire life whenever I asked for equal treatment, as if wanting to be valued was somehow petty and small. I almost reached for my bag then, almost pulled out the inheritance letter to show them that Grandma Martha had seen what they refused to see, that she had valued me enough to entrust me with her legacy. But something stopped me. This wasn't the moment. Revealing the inheritance now would only confirm their narrative, that I was competing with Jason. As the uncomfortable silence stretched, my cousin Amanda touched my arm gently and guided me away from the main group. This is messed up, she whispered, pulling out her phone. Look at this. She showed me a text conversation between her and my mother from 3 weeks ago. The exchange clearly showed my mother rescheduling a family dinner she had planned for Amanda's visit because we're doing Jason's promotion party on the 27th. That was the same day she agreed to your birthday dinner, wasn't it? Amanda asked. I nodded, a cold realization washing over me. This wasn't a case of poor planning or forgetfulness. My mother had deliberately scheduled Jason's celebration on my birthday, knowing full well the conflict. There's more, Amanda said, scrolling to reveal a family group chat I wasn't included in. Messages showed my parents coordinating Jason's party for weeks, discussing the guest list, menu, and decorations, all while maintaining the pretense with me that we would have a small family dinner for my birthday. I felt physically ill. They planned this all along, I'm sorry, Lynette, Amanda said. I didn't realize it was your birthday until I got here and saw your reaction. This is really messed up. I handed her phone back, a strange calm settling over me. The evidence of deliberate exclusion should have hurt more, but instead it felt clarifying. This wasn't about competing celebrations or poor timing. This was about my place, or lack thereof, in my family's priorities. I rejoined the main group, just as my mother was bringing out the cake, a large sheet decorated with congratulatory messages for Jason. He stood at the head of the table looking uncharacteristically uncomfortable as everyone gathered around. Before we sing, Jason said suddenly, I want to acknowledge that today is also Lynette's birthday. Happy 25th, sis. It was a nice gesture, but too little too late. Especially when I noticed his slight hesitation, the way his eyes darted to our parents as if seeking approval for the acknowledgement. You knew, I said quietly, the pieces falling into place. You knew today was my birthday when you agreed to have your party. Jason's expression confirmed it before he could deny anything. You knew, and you went along with it anyway. I continued, my voice gaining strength. All of you knew, you just didn't care. Lynette, that's enough, my father warned. No, it's not nearly enough, I replied. For 25 years I've watched you celebrate Jason's every move while treating my existence as an afterthought. I've made excuses for you, blamed myself, tried harder and harder to earn the love and recognition you give him freely. That's absurd, my mother scoffed. We love both our children equally. No, you don't, I said simply. And what hurts most isn't that you love him more, it's that you won't even admit it. At least be honest about who matters in this family. Jason stepped toward me. Lynette, come on, this is getting out of hand. I turned to him, years of suppressed hurt, finally finding voice. And you've known your whole life that they favor you, and you've never once stood up for me. You've accepted every advantage, every celebration, every resource they've diverted from me to you without question. You're as complicit as they are. My words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples of tension through the room. Guests shifted uncomfortably, looking anywhere but at our family drama unfolding in real time. My mother's face contorted with rage. You're just jealous of your perfect brother, she screamed, abandoning all pretense of calm. You always have been. Nothing we do is ever good enough for you. The raw emotion in her voice silenced the room. Even Jason looked shocked at the outburst. My father stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. I think you should leave, Lynette. If you can't be happy for once in your life, at least don't ruin it for the rest of us. I stood perfectly still, feeling strangely detached from the scene. It was as if I were watching it happen to someone else. This family rejecting their daughter on her birthday, the culmination of a lifetime of similar rejections, large and small. Fine, I said, finally picking up my bag. I'll go. As I turned to leave, Jason caught my arm. Lynette, wait. This is crazy. Let's all calm down. I looked at him, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time, my golden brother, the center of our family universe. And I saw uncertainty in his eyes, maybe even a flicker of shame. You don't get it, Jason, I said quietly. This isn't about tonight. It's about a lifetime of being the afterthought. And I'm done. My mother stepped between us, physically pushing me toward the door. Just go, Lynette. Go ruin someone else's evening. Several guests made noises of protest at her treatment of me, but no one actually intervened. I walked to the door with as much dignity as I could muster, conscious of the eyes following me. At the threshold, I turned back to the uncomfortable gathering. For what it's worth, I did get a promotion last month. Senior financial analyst at Meridian Consulting. Not that anyone bothered to ask. With that, I walked out into the cool evening air, the door closing firmly behind me. For a moment, I stood on the porch, breathing deeply, half expecting someone to follow me out with an apology. But the door remained closed. I got into my car and sat there, letting the tears finally come. Not just for tonight, but for all the nights like it. All the moments of exclusion and dismissal, all the times I'd been made to feel less than, all the times I'd wondered what was wrong with me, that my own parents couldn't seem to love me properly. A memory surfaced, my grandmother sitting with me on her porch swing after another disappointing family gathering when I was 19. I had just won a prestigious economics scholarship, But my announcement had been overshadowed by Jason's new girlfriend. "Your parents are caught in a pattern they can't even see," Grandma Martha had told me, her weathered hand covering mine. "Some people get so fixated on one thing that they become blind to treasures right in front of them." "Why, though?" I had asked, fighting tears. "Why is Jason their treasure and not me?" "It's not about you, dear heart," she'd said firmly. "Never think it is. Your worth isn't determined by their ability to see it." She had looked out over her garden thoughtfully. "Sometimes people have to lose something before they understand its value. Your parents may learn that lesson someday." At the time, her words had seemed like small comfort. But now, sitting in my car outside the house that had never truly felt like home, I understood what she had been telling me. And more importantly, I understood why she had left me the inheritance. I drove to a nearby hotel and checked in for the night, not wanting to make the hour drive back to my apartment in my emotional state. Once in the room, I emptied my bag onto the bed, spreading out the inheritance documents. Along with the letter I'd read earlier, there were property deeds, business ownership certificates, and financial statements. The extent of my grandmother's planning became clear as I reviewed everything. She hadn't just left me her house and some money. She had restructured her entire estate to give me maximum leverage. The family home, the historic Victorian, my parents had always assumed they would inherit, was now mine. But more significantly, I discovered that my grandmother had quietly acquired a controlling interest in my father's construction company through a series of strategic investments over the years. My father had started his business with a loan from Grandma Martha 30 years ago. What none of us knew was that she had continued investing in the company, eventually accumulating enough shares to constitute a majority stake. Those shares were now mine. As I sat surrounded by the evidence of my grandmother's foresight, my phone rang. It was Mr. Patterson, my grandmother's lawyer. "Lynette, I wanted to check if you had any questions after reviewing the documents," he said. "Martha was very specific about calling you this evening to make sure you understood everything." "I think I'm still processing it all," I admitted. "Did my grandmother really own controlling interest in my father's company?" "Yes," he confirmed. "She began acquiring shares shortly after your grandfather passed. Your father was unaware the investments were made through a holding company. Martha was concerned about the direction of the business in recent years." "What do you mean?" Mr. Patterson hesitated. "I probably shouldn't say more without proper documentation, but your grandmother had reasons to believe the company's finances weren't being managed appropriately. She wanted you to have the authority to investigate if necessary." After we hung up, I noticed another envelope I hadn't opened, marked "Private for Lynette's eyes only." Inside was a second letter from my grandmother, dated just 2 weeks before her death. "My dearest Lynette," it began. "If you're reading this, then you've discovered the full extent of your inheritance. I want you to understand why I've done this. I've watched for years as your parents favored Jason, pouring their resources, attention, and love into him while leaving you to fend for yourself. It broke my heart to see your light dimmed by their shadows, to watch you achieve greatness, only to have it dismissed or overlooked. Make no mistake, this isn't about punishing them, though they deserve it. This is about righting a wrong. You've spent your life being denied what should have been freely given: recognition, support, and a fair share of family resources. I've structured this inheritance carefully. You now control assets that your parents assumed would be theirs. This gives you power they never expected you to have. Use it wisely, not for revenge, but for correction. You've always been my true heir in spirit, resourceful, intelligent, and kind, despite having every reason not to be. Now, you're my heir in fact as well. Remember that real power isn't about domination, but about transformation. You have the opportunity to transform your family's dynamics, to break patterns that have persisted for generations. I love you, my bright girl. I've always seen you, even when others didn't. Now make them see you too. All my love, Grandma Martha." I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. My grandmother had seen everything, every slight, every dismissal, every moment I'd been pushed aside for Jason, and she had methodically, deliberately created a path for me to reclaim my place. That night in the hotel room, surrounded by the tangible proof of my grandmother's love and foresight, something shifted inside me. The hurt child, seeking validation from parents who couldn't give it, began to recede, replaced by a woman who understood her own worth, and now had the means to ensure others recognized it too. I fell asleep with the second letter clutched to my chest, my grandmother's words echoing in my mind. Make them see you too. I didn't contact my family for 2 weeks after the birthday disaster. No one reached out to me either, except Jason, who sent a text the next day that read, "Things got out of hand last night. Sorry about your birthday. Let's talk soon." I didn't respond. I needed time to think, to plan, to decide how I wanted to use the unexpected power that had been placed in my hands. Revenge would be easy. I could sell my shares in my father's company, fire him from his own business, evict my parents from the family home they had been living in rent-free since Grandma Martha moved to her condo 5 years ago. But destruction wasn't what my grandmother had wanted for me or for our family. Instead, I began methodically educating myself about my new position. I met with financial advisors to understand the full scope of my inheritance. I consulted with business attorneys about my rights and responsibilities as a majority shareholder. I had the family home appraised and inspected. Mr. Patterson proved invaluable during this process, connecting me with experts and explaining my grandmother's intentions for various assets. "Martha believed your financial acumen was being wasted," he told me during one of our meetings. "She saw how you put yourself through college, how you managed to build savings even on your entry-level salary. She wanted to give you the resources to truly flourish." 2 weeks into my planning, I received a call from Roger Whitman, my father's business partner and the company's CFO. "Lynette, I hope I'm not overstepping," he began awkwardly. "Your grandmother's lawyer contacted me about transferring some paperwork. And, well, I've just learned about your new position with the company. I'm still determining exactly what that position will be," I said carefully. "I understand," he replied, "but I was hoping we could meet. There are some matters I think you should be aware of." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop the following day. Roger looked nervous as he slid into the booth across from me, placing a folder on the table between us. "I've known you since you were a little girl," he said after we'd exchanged pleasantries. "I've always thought your father underestimated you." "Thank you," I said, slightly surprised. "What did you want to discuss?" He tapped the folder. "Your father doesn't know I'm meeting with you. If he did..." He trailed off, then squared his shoulders. "The company is in trouble, Lynette. Serious financial trouble." He opened the folder to reveal financial statements, contracts, and bank records. "Your father has been making some questionable decisions over the past few years. Taking on high-risk projects with minimal returns, extending credit to clients with poor payment histories, and..." He hesitated, diverting company funds for personal use. I examined the documents, my business training, allowing me to quickly spot the irregularities. "He's been embezzling." "I wouldn't call it that exactly," Roger hedged. "Greg considers the company an extension of himself. He doesn't see a clear line between business and personal finances." What Roger was trying to politely explain became clear as I reviewed the records. My father had been systematically draining the company to maintain an appearance of success and to fund Jason's lavish lifestyle, his luxury apartment, his car, even his extravagant vacations had been quietly funneled through company accounts as business development or client relations. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. Roger looked tired suddenly. "I'm 3 years from retirement. I've put my life into this company. At the rate your father is going, there won't be a company left when I'm ready to cash out my shares." He met my eyes directly. "Your grandmother knew. She tried to talk to Greg about it, but he wouldn't listen. I think that's why she did what she did." I thanked Roger for his honesty and assured him I would look into the situation discreetly. As I drove home, pieces of the puzzle fell into place. My father's increasingly lavish gifts to Jason, the new vacation property they had purchased last year, my mother's designer wardrobe, all while claiming they could only afford one private school tuition, one set of college campus visits, one child's dream. Over the next few days, I quietly began addressing the company's most pressing issues. I had several failing contracts reviewed by consultants who specialized in construction project recovery. I instructed the accounting department to implement stricter financial controls, citing standard audit procedures as the reason. I arranged for a line of credit to cover immediate cash flow problems. All of this was done without directly revealing my ownership position. As far as most employees knew, I was acting as a consultant, brought in by the board to review operations. Only Roger and the company's attorneys knew the truth. 3 weeks after the birthday party, I ran into Jason at a cafe near my office. His surprise seemed genuine. "Lynette, I've been trying to reach you." "I've been busy," I replied, not elaborating. He insisted I join him, and against my better judgment I did. There was something different about him, a hint of uncertainty that hadn't been there before. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," he began after we had ordered. "About me being complicit in how Mom and Dad treat you." I waited silently, giving him space to continue. "I guess I never really thought about it that way," he admitted. "It was just normal, you know, the way things were. For you," I pointed out, "it wasn't normal for me." He had the grace to look ashamed. "I know that now, or I'm trying to understand it." He stirred his coffee needlessly. "The thing is, Lynette, they've always pitted us against each other. When we were kids, they'd praise me in front of you, but when you weren't around, they'd ask why I couldn't be more focused, like you, more disciplined. This was news to me." "Really?" "Yeah. It was always, why can't you get straight as like Lynette? Or, Lynette never gives us this much trouble about homework." He shook his head. "I'm not saying it was the same as what you experienced. Obviously, they gave me more tangible advantages. But I think they used both of us in different ways." I considered this perspective. It had never occurred to me that Jason might have his own complicated relationship with our parents' expectations. "That birthday party was wrong," he continued. "I should have said something when Mom suggested having my promotion celebration that night. I knew it was your birthday." "Why didn't you?" I asked, genuinely curious. He stared into his coffee cup. "Honestly, because it was easier not to. Because I'm used to taking what they give me without questioning it." He looked up. "That's not an excuse. It's just the truth." There was a vulnerability in his expression I hadn't seen before, a crack in the golden child facade. "They're not easy people, are they?" I said after a moment. Jason laughed without humor. "No, they're not." He hesitated. "I miss you, Lynette. We used to be close before." "Before they made sure we weren't," I finished. He nodded soberly. "Can we try again? Not as their children, but just as us." I wasn't ready to fully forgive him yet, but I saw an opening for something new. Maybe. It would take time, Jason. And things are going to change in the family soon. "What do you mean?" I nearly told him about the inheritance then, but something held me back. The timing wasn't right yet. "Just that I'm not going to accept the status quo anymore," I said instead. As we parted ways, Jason hugged me awkwardly at first, then with genuine warmth. "I am sorry about your birthday," he said. 25 is a big deal." "Yes," I agreed. "Bigger than anyone knows." In the weeks that followed, I continued my behind-the-scenes work with the company while preparing for the inevitable confrontation with my parents. I had the locks changed at the family home and had my grandmother's remaining jewelry appraised. I documented everything my mother had sold without authorization and calculated the total value. I also had long conversations with Mr. Patterson about my grandmother's vision. She wanted healing, not destruction, he reminded me. She believed you were the only one who could break the cycle. By the time 6 weeks had passed since the birthday disaster, I was ready. I sent a formal email to my parents, Jason, and a few key family members requesting their presence at a family meeting regarding Martha Williams' estate at the family home on Saturday afternoon. I signed it simply Lynette Williams, using my grandmother's surname instead of our family name. My father called almost immediately. "What is this about Lynette?" he demanded. "We've already handled your grandmother's estate." "Not entirely," I replied calmly. "There are matters that need to be addressed in person. I'll see you Saturday. Now, listen here." "Saturday 2 o'clock, I repeated and hung up. As I put down the phone, I felt a strange calm. The frightened girl seeking her parents' approval was gone. In her place stood a woman ready to reshape her family's future, not through revenge, but through truth. I arrived at the family home an hour early on Saturday, letting myself in with the new keys. The house felt different somehow, as if it recognized its new owner. I walked through the rooms, slowly remembering summers with my grandmother here. The holidays before the family dynamics soured the corners where I had hidden with books as a child. This house had stood for 4 generations, weathering family storms before mine. It would withstand this one too. I had arranged for light refreshments in the formal dining room and set up the necessary documentation in my grandfather's old study. By 1:45, everything was ready. My parents arrived precisely at 2, their faces tight, with annoyance and confusion. My father tried the door with his key before knocking forcefully. "What's going on, Lynette?" he demanded as I opened the door. "Why doesn't my key work?" "I had the locks changed," I said, simply stepping aside to let them enter. "We can discuss that during the meeting." My mother looked around critically. "You've been staying here, without telling us." "No, I came early to prepare. Please have a seat in the dining room. We'll begin when everyone arrives." They complied reluctantly, muttering to each other. Jason arrived a few minutes later, followed by Aunt Patricia, Uncle Robert, and Mr. Patterson. I had specifically invited my aunt and uncle as neutral witnesses, knowing my parents would be less likely to lose their tempers with extended family present. Once everyone was seated around the dining table, I remained standing at the head, my grandmother's traditional place. "Thank you all for coming," I began formally. "I've asked you here to address several matters related to Grandmother Martha's estate that have not been properly resolved." "What are you talking about?" my father interrupted. "The will was read months ago. Everything went to your mother as expected." Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. "Actually, that's not accurate, Mr. Williams. If I may." At my nod, he distributed copies of the inheritance documents to everyone at the table. "Martha Williams executed a new will and established several trusts in the months before her passing," he explained. "The documents you are looking at outline the actual disposition of her estate." My parents stared at the papers in shock, while Jason flipped through his copy with growing confusion. "This can't be right," my mother said, finally, her voice faint. "She left everything to Lynette." "Not quite everything," Mr. Patterson corrected, "but the majority, yes, including this house and her business interests." My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "This is ridiculous. Mother would never She did," I interrupted firmly. "Grandma Martha made me her primary heir effective on my 25th birthday. The significance of the date hung in the air between us. Which means," I continued, "that I am now the legal owner of this house, where you have been living rent-free since Grandma moved to her condo. I am also the majority shareholder in Williams Construction." My father stood up so abruptly that his chair fell backward. "That's impossible. I built that company from nothing." "With a loan from Grandma," I reminded him, "and she continued investing over the years. She owned 60% of the shares through a holding company. Those shares are now mine." "You can't run a construction company," he scoffed. "You don't know the first thing about it." "I know enough to recognize financial mismanagement when I see it," I replied evenly, sliding another folder across the table, including the systematic diversion of company funds for personal expenses. My father went pale as he glanced at the contents copies of the records Roger had shown me, along with my own findings from the past weeks. "You had no right to access these records," he stammered. "As majority shareholder, I have every right," I corrected him. "Just as I have the right to question why company money was used to pay for Jason's apartment, Mom's cosmetic procedures, and your vacation property in Florida." My mother gasped. Jason looked stunned. "Dad, you told me the firm was covering my apartment as part of my compensation package," he said slowly. "It was an arrangement," my father hedged. "A perfectly legitimate business expense." "It was embezzlement," I stated flatly. "And it's left the company in serious financial trouble. 3 major projects are on the verge of failure. We've lost our bonding capacity, and there's barely enough working capital to make payroll next month." Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert exchanged alarmed glances. They had both invested in the company years ago. "Is this true?" Uncle Robert asked sharply. My father avoided his gaze. "There have been some cash flow issues. Nothing serious." The company is 3 months from bankruptcy, I corrected him. Unless significant changes are made immediately. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. My father remained standing, his hands gripping the back of a chair for support. My mother had tears streaming down her face, whether from shock or calculation was hard to tell. Jason looked bewildered, as if trying to reconcile this new information with his understanding of our family. "Why?" my mother asked finally. "Why would your grandmother do this to us?" "She didn't do anything to you," I replied calmly. "She did something for me. She recognized what you never could, that I have value, that I have capabilities that I deserve, a share of the family resources that have always gone exclusively to Jason." "That's not true," she protested weakly. "We've always treated you both." "Don't," I cut her off sharply. "Don't finish that sentence with a lie we all know isn't true. For my entire life you've favored Jason in every way possible. You've celebrated his mediocre achievements while ignoring my exceptional ones. You've given him opportunities and advantages you've denied me. You even replaced my birthday celebration with yet another party for him." Jason winced at that, looking down at his hands. "We gave you everything you needed," my father argued. "You never wanted for anything." "I wanted your attention," I said, my voice finally betraying emotion. "I wanted your approval. I wanted you to be as proud of me as you were of him. I worked twice as hard for half the recognition, and even then you couldn't see me." "Is that what this is about?" my father demanded. "You're punishing us because you think we didn't praise you enough." "No," I said firmly. "This isn't punishment. This is correction. Grandma Martha saw the imbalance in this family, and she gave me the means to correct it." I turned to address everyone at the table. "I have no intention of destroying what my grandparents and parents built. The company can be saved, the house preserved, the family relationships repaired, but only with honesty and significant changes." I turned back to my parents. "So, here's what's going to happen. Dad, you will remain as president of Williams Construction, but with oversight from a board that I will chair. All financial decisions above $10,000 will require board approval. The personal expenses charged to the company will stop immediately, and a repayment plan will be established." My father opened his mouth to protest, but I continued. "Alternatively, I can exercise my right as majority shareholder to remove you completely and install new management. Your choice." He closed his mouth, seething but silent. "As for this house," I continued, "you may continue living here for now, but we will formalize the arrangement with a proper lease." "And Mother?" I pulled out another document. This is an inventory of Grandma Martha's jewelry that was specifically bequeathed to me, along with documentation of the pieces you sold without authority. You will either return the remaining items and reimburse me for those you sold, or face legal consequences for conversion of assets." My mother's face crumpled. "How can you do this to us? We're your parents." For the first time, genuine anger flashed through me. "How could you do what you've done to me? I'm your daughter. I never asked for special treatment, just equal consideration, just the bare minimum of parental support and recognition." To my surprise, it was Jason who spoke next. "She's right, Mom. You and Dad have always favored me. I didn't see it clearly until recently, but it's true." He turned to me. "What about me in all this? Where do I stand?" I regarded my brother thoughtfully. "That depends on you, Jason. I meant what I said about wanting to fix this family, not destroy it. If you're willing to work with me instead of against me, there's a place for you." He nodded slowly. "I want that. I want us to be actual siblings, not competitors." For the first time since entering the room, I sat down, taking my place at the head of the table. "Then here's my proposal to all of you. We start over with honesty and equity as our foundation. No more favoritism, no more financial misconduct, no more pretending the past didn't happen." I looked at each family member in turn. "We can build something better than what we had before, but only if we all commit to it." My father was the first to respond, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. "You really are your grandmother's granddaughter." After a long moment, he added reluctantly, "What's your plan for saving the company?" It wasn't acceptance yet, but it was a start. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of the family home. My home now, though I still thought of it as Grandma Martha's putting final touches on a dinner I was preparing. The house smelled of roasting chicken and cinnamon, warm and inviting on this cool autumn evening. So much had changed in those 6 months, both in practical terms and in the less tangible realm of family dynamics. The company was stabilizing under new financial controls and a restructured management team. My father had initially resisted the oversight, but had gradually come to accept the new arrangement, especially as the changes began to show positive results. My mother had been slower to adjust. The jewelry incident had forced a confrontation about her lifelong pattern of taking what wasn't hers, not just material possessions, but attention, credit, and control. She had eventually returned the remaining pieces and arranged payments for those she had sold, though not without significant resistance. Jason had surprised me the most. Once freed from the golden child pedestal, he had shown unexpected depth and self-awareness. We had begun having regular lunch meetings that evolved from awkward business discussions to genuine sibling conversations. He had moved out of his luxury apartment into a more modest place and had started paying his own way entirely, a first in his adult life. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. My family was arriving for our monthly dinner, a tradition I had instituted as part of our healing process. These gatherings had been tense at first, but each one grew incrementally more comfortable as we established new patterns of interaction. Jason arrived first, bearing a bottle of wine and a warm smile. "Need any help in the kitchen?" "You can toss the salad," I suggested, returning his smile. This easy cooperation was still new between us, but increasingly natural. My parents arrived next, my father carrying a small box that he placed carefully on the side table. My mother embraced me stiffly, our physical affection still awkward, but improving from the complete absence that had preceded our confrontation. "Something smells wonderful," she commented, making an effort. "Grandma Martha's roast chicken recipe," I replied. I found her recipe cards in the study. A shadow crossed my mother's face at the mention of her mother, but she nodded. She was always an excellent cook. We moved to the dining room where I had set the table with Grandma's good china, another intentional choice. As we settled in and began passing dishes, the conversation flowed more easily than it once had. We talked about the company's progress, Jason's new interest in rock climbing, my mother's volunteer work at the local library, a new endeavor she had begun, partly at my suggestion. "I have something for you," my father said as we finished the main course. He reached for the box he had brought, placing it in front of me. We found this while cleaning out some old storage areas at the house. I opened it carefully to find a collection of childhood mementos, report cards showing straight as ribbons from spelling bees and science fairs, certificates of achievement, and school photos spanning from kindergarten through high school. "You kept these?" I asked, surprised. The carefully preserved collection contradicted my belief that my achievements had been completely overlooked. "Your mother did," my father admitted. "She has a box for each of you." I looked at my mother questioningly. She flushed slightly. "Of course I kept them. You're my daughter." The simple statement hit me with unexpected force. "You're my daughter." How long had I waited to feel the truth of those words? "I know we didn't acknowledge your accomplishments the way we should have," she continued haltingly. "I can't explain why exactly. It was never because we weren't proud. It wasn't a full apology or explanation, but from my mother it was significant progress." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand briefly. "Thank you for keeping these." After dinner, as we moved to the living room for coffee, my father cleared his throat awkwardly. "Lynette, there's something else we wanted to discuss with you." The formal tone made me tense slightly. "What is it?" "Your mother and I have been talking, and, well, we realized we never properly acknowledged your birthday." My birthday, the catalyst that had set everything in motion. It seemed a lifetime ago now. "We'd like to do that if you'll let us," my mother added. "Better late than never, I suppose." Before I could respond, Jason excused himself briefly and returned carrying a cake, a proper birthday cake, with my name written across it in elegant script. "Happy belated 25th, sis," he said, placing it on the coffee table. I stared at the cake then, at my family's expectant faces. This gesture 6 months delayed couldn't erase years of neglect. Yet it represented something meaningful, an acknowledgement of past wrongs, a willingness to do better. "Thank you," I said simply, allowing a small smile. As Jason lit the candles, I found myself thinking of Grandma Martha. She had known this moment might come, not the specifics perhaps, but the possibility of healing. She had given me not just financial power, but the leverage to demand emotional recognition as well. After cake and more comfortable conversation, my parents prepared to leave. At the door, my father hesitated. "The company's quarterly results are the best we've had in 3 years," he said. His typical gruff manner softened slightly. "Your financial controls were, well, they were the right call." Coming from him, this was high praise indeed. "Thank you for implementing them," I responded. "The company is worth saving." He nodded, a new respect in his eyes. "Your grandmother always said you had a head for business. I should have listened to her sooner." After they left, Jason helped me clean up the silence between us, comfortable rather than strained. "They're trying," he observed as we loaded the dishwasher. "Yes," I agreed. "It's a start." "And us?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "Are we okay, Lynette?" I considered the question seriously. "We're getting there. It's not just about you and me, you know. It's about dismantling patterns that were set long before we were born." Jason nodded thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about that. Mom treats you the way Grandpa treated her, always critical, never quite good enough. And she treats me the way she wished she'd been treated." This insight surprised me. "You've given this a lot of thought." "I've had to," he said with a rueful smile. "It's not easy realizing you've been the unwitting beneficiary of an unfair system, or that your advantages came at your sister's expense." I appreciated his honesty. "Well, we're changing that system now. All of us." Later that evening, after Jason had gone, I sat in Grandma Martha's study, my study now, and opened the bottom drawer of her desk, where I kept her letters. Rereading her words, I felt her presence strongly. Real power isn't about domination, but about transformation, she had written. I was beginning to understand the depth of that wisdom. In the 6 months since the confrontation, I had established the Martha Williams Foundation, which provided scholarships to overlooked students who showed promise in business and economics. I had restructured the company to be more equitable and transparent. And most importantly, I had initiated the slow, difficult process of reshaping my family relationships. None of it had been easy. There had been resistant setbacks and moments of doubt. The damage of decades couldn't be undone in months. But we were moving forward, step by step, toward something healthier than what had come before. I closed the drawer and moved to the window, looking out at the garden my grandmother had loved. In the moonlight, I could see new growth emerging from the careful pruning I had done earlier in the season. That was us now. A family pruned back to its essentials, making room for new, healthier growth. The process was painful, but necessary, the results worth the struggle. As I prepared for bed in what had been my grandmother's room, I caught my reflection in the mirror and saw a glimpse of her in my own features. The determined set of the jaw, the clear-eyed gaze. I had inherited more than her assets. I had inherited her strength, her vision, her capacity for both firmness and forgiveness. 6 months ago, I had been ejected from my family home on my 25th birthday, clutching an inheritance letter and burning with hurt and rejection. Today, I stood in that same home as its rightful owner, hosting my family on my own terms, guiding us all toward a better future. The journey wasn't over. Real transformation takes time, persistence, and courage. But for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen by my family. Not as the afterthought, the lesser child, or the jealous sister, but as Lynette, capable, valuable, and worthy of respect. And that, I realized, was the greatest inheritance my grandmother could have given me. Have you ever felt overlooked within your own family? How would you handle discovering you had more power than anyone realized? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content that explores complex family dynamics and personal growth. And if you know someone who might find comfort or inspiration in Lynette's journey, please share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the greatest power comes not from changing others, but from transforming how we respond to them.